Okay, and we are now live. We'll give it a second for people to start filtering in. Naturally, as soon as I start, the freaking cat wants to come in. Give me 1 second here. Let me let her in real quick. It's not a podcast without Tabitha the podcasting cat. Or a live streaming cat. Hello, everybody. Looks like people are beginning to show up here. Let me send the Twitters a notification to let us know that we're live. How is everybody doing tonight? Hey, looks like we got Eric and Eddie. We got March here. Super Shamu Comics. A Brown comic reader. NERDROTIC channel, as well as Maranya. You still with me, John? Okay.
Yeah, I just muted myself so I could type a bunch without getting a bunch of clicks on you.
No worries, man. No worries. Okay.
But I think I shared it around everywhere.
Sweet. Let me throw this in Discord real quick and let people know that we're going.
Oh, I totally forgot Discord.
Yeah. Everybody forgets Discord.
I've been not logging into Discord the last couple of weeks. I've been I told you offline here, about some things I've been going through, but I don't know. Discord's like the easiest thing to give up, I feel like, internet wise.
Yeah, there's times where I tend to forget to log in for a couple days, and yeah, it's like, are people trying to talk to me? No, okay, that's good.
Oh, I've got all these notifications. Yeah. Oh, everyone. Oh.
that happens on occasion, not all the time, but it does happen. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and get started. Looks like we have 12 people. I don't know how many people are planning on showing up tonight because I'm not sure if they're interested in this subject or not. But you guys know the rules, hopefully. If you want me to read a comment, at me so I can get the information. Oh, I forgot the opening. Welcome back, Pixel Nation. How the hell are you? Okay, now it's officially started. So, I have John Delarose with me this evening, and we're going to be talking about some very interesting stuff going on at Emerald City Comic Con. I'm sure you people have already heard about it. What's been going on there with the non-white cis male mixers that have been going on, and you went and kind of called them out on it. So, how did you get this? How did this get brought to your attention?
All right. It didn't come from me originally. It came from an anonymous source who wanted to stay anonymous because they don't want all the heat that shows up when you start calling these things out on the internet, justifiably so.
Right.
And this person actually went on and was going to Emerald City Comic Con. I was thinking about going, but I ended up not being able to for other reasons. And saw these mixers on there and just messaged them and said, well, where's my white male mixer? And they responded saying, hey, we didn't have one. Well, at that point, I'm a helpful guy, as you know, so I decided to be helpful. And I offered to run a white male mixer, and they decided to not respond to me. So at that point, I took it to Megan Fox. I posted it up on dangerous.com. And then Breitbart even picked it up. So the media got a hold of it at that point.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's all really kind of bizarre. Is this starting to become more commonplace? Because this is the first I've heard of it.
I think it's just first becoming a media story. I've been kind of on the convention scene for a while. I've been speaking at San Diego Comic-Con since 2012, and I've spoken at a number of local conventions here. Almost all of them, if you look, especially the more regional, local level ones, do these things where they definitely are pushing like an affirmative action agenda, where they'll have a bunch of panels about LGBT issues or women's rights, blah, 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 minorities, how hard it is to be a minority. You know, I got put on those a lot early on because of my last name and because of my heritage.
Mhm.
And, you know, it ended up, all these things are always just wine fest saying, oh, it's so terrible. White people are so terrible. And, you know, I feel so alone here amongst the white people, you know, and they're all like that. And I was like, don't put me on these panels again. First off, I don't want to sit around and whine. I want to have fun while I'm at a convention. But yeah, it's been going on for a long time. And as it's been pushing, I think it's becoming more of a percentage of the convention's programming. And I think the media is starting to notice it. But it's, you know, we're talking 5-10 years. It's been like this at the very least.
Really? That's interesting. Now, I know that at New York City Comic Con, they had, I guess, like panels that were sponsored by, what was it, Planned Parenthood?
Yeah, I saw that. I didn't really investigate into that one too much. I don't know. I'm from the West Coast, so I only care about West Coast things, I guess.
Right.
Sorry.
Fair enough. No. Fair enough. Yeah, I remember seeing something about that too, but I remember it's like, how is this appropriate for a Comic-Con? Regardless of what your stance is on abortion, this seems really kind of out of place for a comic convention. You think that they'd have more things that involved comics?
It's pretty weird. You know, I don't know. Maybe Planned Parenthood thought they could gain some publicity through it. You know, I don't know. If Planned Parenthood came to me and said, I want to sponsor your next book, I don't know that I'd turn them down. I wouldn't, but it would be kind of weird. It wouldn't make sense. And especially given the content of my books, which are just fun science fiction, you know, there's really nothing to talk about for Planned Parenthood there, but I don't know, maybe they made a demographic decision. Maybe somebody in Planned Parenthood just liked comic books. Who knows?
Maybe that's a good possibility.
Yeah.
Okay, so I of course, naturally, I completely forget to do the introduction here, besides giving your name. So tell us about yourself. What exactly you do? You're an author.
Yeah, I've been working as an author for money for about a year. I originally ran a webcomic called Flying Sparks, and it got a few thousand readers every week. And that's how I kind of got into that Comic-Con circuit back in 2012. And I ran that for about 2 years. Then I started working for game companies, doing some of the lore for their card games and things like that.
Oh,
and,
right on.
Yeah, it was kind of just like a background sort of thing. So you wouldn't hear of me, but you probably were playing games with my stuff in it. And I did that for Doomtown Reloaded for AEG. It's one of their LCG games, and that was a lot of fun. Then I got into Star Realms, of course. And then I decided to just write books. So that ended up being a bit more fun. And that kind of spiraled into some things like the Federalist asked me to start writing about comic book culture for them. And then Milo Yiannopoulos over at Dangerous.com wanted me to do the same. And yeah, and here I am.
Oh, there's one thing that Feisty Fan pointed out that I do have to correct. Yes, Planned Parenthood does not just do abortions; they do other services as well. But still, I do find that to be kind of weird to have a sponsored by a comic convention. Anyway, sorry, go ahead, continue. Or are you done?
Yeah, no problem. So yeah, I'm mostly writing books now. I am going to be going back into comics this year. I'm adapting Richard Fox's The Ember War, which is you know, a lot of indie authors, people don't realize this. Indie authors are where it's at these days. Richard Fox is selling hundreds of thousands of books. His books sell more copies than any Marvel or DC book out there. You know, other than like a big event like Dark Knight Metal or something like that. But any comic out on the shelves right now, his books are selling more than, and I'm getting to adapt it as a comic, so it's going to be pretty cool. And of course, nobody in the media is talking about it.
Yeah, I do find that kind of odd. It seems like indie books kind of get pushed to the wayside when it comes to media, or at least the comic book media.
Yeah, we'll see if that happens when the sales figures come out for this.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, so back on to Emerald City Comic Con. You were planning on going. You were notified. You contacted them about running a straight white mixer for ECC, and you didn't hear anything back. Why do you think that they simply didn't respond? Do you think they just didn't take you serious, or do you think that they don't want to deal with the issue that's coming up?
I think that they saw the first comments that were coming in where somebody was asking about it. They answered it, and then I came in, and I'm kind of a media personality. Maybe they knew who I was, and they're like, okay, this is somebody not to respond to. Megan Fox over at PJ Media then followed up. She started asking them for comments on it, as a journalist. And, at that point, I think they went radio silent intentionally because they just didn't want to deal with it. Unfortunately, it became a big story anyway.
Mm-hmm. Basically, they're trying to avoid bad press, it seems like.
Yeah.
But they got it anyway.
The way these cons try to avoid
bad press. So I'm going to play devil's advocate. Why does this matter?
Why does this matter? Yeah. This matters because it is active discrimination. I mean, this is the sort of thing that leads to segregation. This is segregation. The Comic-Con is saying we want these groups to meet in this corner by themselves, and we're not going to do one for white people. You're not even, you can't come here. This is not a space for you. And that's really that is what was fought against in the 60s in terms of the civil rights movement. It was the opposite. Then it was black people. You're not allowed to come to this space. But it's gone to such an absurd degree to try to, I guess, make up for that era or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Where most people today, are their grandparents were part of that era, but they never really experienced something like that. And I think it's probably a good intention to start, but once these things sort of spiral, then internet people get a hold of it, and you've got your little echo chambers going. I think they just go way too far over the line. And after a number of years of that, we're kind of seeing the results of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the thing I find kind of bizarre about all this is that if you were to change one thing, people of color to white people, you would have people complaining all over the internet about what's going on with this. The other thing too is the legality of it. I know this is something I thought about. How can they do this legally? And it was something that somebody mentioned in the comments when I made the post about the stream this evening. How can they get away with this legally?
Well, I think there might be a possibility of a discrimination suit here. You would have to. At this point, I think we found Emerald City Comic Con had this programming. It was the day of the show. The programming's over. I think they would say, well, if we had somebody to run a white people one, we would do it. If it came down to court. So I don't know that they will actually have any legal issues over this. Now, if next year they continue to have these minority or it's not even minority anymore. That's too tame of a word for what they're doing. But if they have certain ethnicities or certain sexual orientations, mixers or whatnot, and then don't allow one with ample time to plan one for another sort of group, at that point we do have actual discrimination. So I'm going to follow up on this, and I am going to offer to run these other mixers if nobody else will, because I'm here, I'm on the front lines of the civil rights sort of thing, really, and I don't mind stepping up and doing that. So I expect to be ignored, but we'll have to look at that and see what it actually means legally from their standpoint. We can give them bad press right now, but I think they're covered at the moment.
Right. Well, because I know one of the things by law, they can't simply bar you from entering being a straight white guy. They have to let you in. But one thing that what they can do is make you feel extremely uncomfortable.
Yeah, and they'll do that. I mean, most people might be familiar with my situation right now. I'm the first person who's been banned from the World Science Fiction Convention, which is more of an author's convention in the book realm. I'm the first person banned since 1964, before the convention started. And in that case, they banned a guy who was a convicted pedophile. And they didn't ban him for the entire convention. They just banned him for one day. They went online.
Why did they ban him for one day? That's crazy.
Right? Well, he was a respected science fiction author in the field. And I guess some people complained for one day. And that's kind of was the compromise they came out with. But it was bizarre. So I don't know. There's a whole nother sort of subculture here where there are some gross things going on, and there's some gross people in the geek community that have been protected because it's being covered in sort of the LGBT agenda, you know, for honestly pedophilia sort of situations going on. And there was a book out last year by Moira Grayland. It's called The Last Closet. And it goes into that. I couldn't finish the book. It was so, this happened to her personally, and as a child. And I couldn't finish. It was tragic. But these sort of creepy elements are going on at the conventions. And that's another story. But what they'll do is, instead of saying you can't come because you're a white male, we know how this works online with what we've seen with Diversity in Comics, myself and others. They'll go and they'll say, well, you're a harasser.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't want harassers at our con. And and you can't disprove you're a harasser, because what does that even mean at this point, right?
Right.
So they'll point to, you were mean to somebody on the internet. Well, you might have just been responding to somebody. It's like Twitter, though. Twitter will ban you if you respond to somebody and you say something mean to somebody who's being mean back. If they feel like you are the wrong identity and they're the right identity, Twitter will ban you. We've been through this too. So it doesn't matter. That's how they'll try to couch it. And that's kind of what they're doing to me. So Worldcon went. They said I was intending on violating their code of conduct. If you want to talk about thought police.
Okay, so what exactly happened with Worldcon? So you were banned from Worldcon.
Yeah.
How did all this transpire? How did this start? Did you say something? I mean,
Yeah,
did you piss somebody off?
I was planning a sort of conservative writers group to come in and maybe set up some tables and sell some books. And this is well documented. I emailed with the chairman of the convention. The chairman has some personal anger and animus against me from another convention that he was a part of. And so he's been kind of out to get me for a bit. But we were going to buy a table, and everybody, after the Diversity in Comics thing with New York Comic Con last year, where he was, what was it? The people online were sort of plotting to get him convicted of a crime or try to hit them or something like that, trying to goad him into violence was their words, right? After that, you know, I was like, wow, this is kind of dangerous at these conventions. If you're a known figure, it's danger zone now, you know? I mean, you might be all right here as Comix Division, and without a picture, people might not know who you are, but people know who I am, right?
Right.
And it's frightening. And so my friends who are also authors, they all backed out, and they said, we can't risk this. We're not going to fly to Worldcon and do this and risk, you know, some sort of legal confrontation or somebody trying to attack us or whatnot. And I said, that's fine. So I emailed the guy from the convention. I said, hey, my guys who are going to do the table with me are backing out. They're backing out because they don't think that it's going to be safe for conservative authors at your convention. And he didn't bother responding to me. This was on November 2nd, 2017. I've been through all this a lot because I'm in the middle of a legal case against them. But they didn't respond. And a couple months later, some people were joshing with me on the, you know, some joshing with me on the internet and talking about, you know, call me names and all that on that side. And well, I said something about, hey, I'm going to go to Worldcon, and you know, if anybody does any hijinks, well, I'll have a body cam on me, so don't. And you know, a few days later, they sent me an email saying I was banned. Now, I don't know that
because you wanted to wear a body cam,
right? Right. So I don't know if that was the onus of it. That sort of as a narrative developed a couple days after they banned me. They just told me I was intending to violate their code of conduct and that it was final, not appealable. And so I asked them, I said, what code of conduct am I violating? They never responded. You know, it was very weird. A couple days later, that body cam narrative emerged. They were couching it as I was trying to illegally record or whatnot. And, you know, I went on their code of conduct at that point because they said I was intending on violating their code of conduct. It says immediately, like one of the first things, recordings are permitted.
Yeah, I know. I was about to say, first off, you're in a public place. There is no expectation of privacy. We have people with cameras walking around all the time, taking pictures of cosplayers and whatnot. For them to say that you wanting to wear a body cam is somehow violating one of their policies is ridiculous.
It's
now,
totally
I have to agree with you with the whole thought police thing, because saying that you're intending to violate one of their rules is projection, I
Right.
guess. I mean, that just makes no fucking sense to me.
It's very bizarre. And so, I mean, I know the reason they did it, and it's because I'm an outspoken Trump supporter. I'm a media figure, and a lot of people, you know, they got some emails from some people who like to harass me, and those people were like, "John's a harasser. You have to get him out of here. You can't allow him here." And then they decided to all take action because, you know, I'm terrible, horrible Trump supporter, and that's it, right?
Okay, that sounds vaguely familiar. Have you heard of the whole thing that has been going on with MythCon in, I think it's Milwaukee?
No, what's going on?
Okay, so last year they I think they had Sargon, Shuon Head, and Armored Skeptic there, and a lot of the people that they've been very outspoken against, I think was like Steve Shives and some other people, were trying to get them banned, and they actually were able to convince some people to back out that were from the left. And you see the exact same thing kind of going on right now because they're setting up for MythCon for this year, and that, you know, they have some of the same people, and there's more people that are going to be showing up. But you had the same thing going on, so they're pushing this narrative, trying to get them banned, trying to deplatform these people, simply because they don't have the right politics.
Yeah, that's interesting. That sounds like a convention I want to go to if they're there.
Yeah,
sounds fun.
And some of these people are, you know, they're not Trump supporters. They're pretty liberal people, but, you know, they don't follow. They're not, you know, left wing ideologues. They're not, you know, authoritarians. They're very outspoken on what the issues they see with the left. It's mind blowing how people go to such extremes to try and deplatform other people.
Yeah, it's definitely happening. I actually found during the course of all this happening, there's a group of, it's professional writers or semi-professional writers. The criteria is you have at least one paid sale to join this group. They're called Codex Writers Forum, and one of their members sent me logs of their forum, which is a private forum, and they have this whole like secretive thing about it. They call it the cone of silence. And and anything said in here cannot be uttered outside because there's a cone of silence, and if you do, you're going to be, you know, blacklisted or whatever and removed from the group. And you know, they make it very melodramatic, but you know, that it exists so they can talk smack about people. And so there was this list, and they started talking about me, and they conspired. They conspired to make sure I was not allowed into a writers guild, and it's big name people in the industry doing it, and I have their names. I don't know what I can do about it, but you know, there is definitely like this sort of like back channel that is blacklisting people and causing problems, and then going around creating the outrage and getting people banned and all that too. It's very, very bizarre. I don't know how much they have that much time on their hands to do that.
Yeah, that's very bizarre. Is this outside the Facebook one that you belong to, where they had the whole DNC thing going on, or is this the same one?
There's a separate one, just sort of the same thing with book writers instead of comic writers.
Gotcha. So, Englentine, just to kind of get you caught up, we've kind of talked about what happened with Emerald City Comic Con, the mixers, as well as John's experience from getting banned from Worldcon. Now, you have gone and created a video. I actually invited just some guy to join as well, but he's got a lot going on and was not able to make it. So I want to get some other people, just besides myself and John, who had their own reactions to what was going on. So kind of give us your perspective on all this. I mean, you were pretty angry.
Hold on, just
sure.
Okay, hold on just a second so I can turn off the sound here. My whole take on this is that it's pretty much reached climax. It's like it's almost cartoonish now, what we should be expecting and what to expect from people who are bending over backwards to segregate to be racist in the name of inclusion. It's amazing to me that we've reached this point. And I as I said in the video, I figured, you know, the whole convention, the conventions themselves were a place that brought us all together, no matter what we were.
Right.
It didn't matter. It was the one place that a geek could feel safe. You know, one place that you could share your love. And mind you, I am talking some years ago that this started for me, that I realized, oh, okay, well, here you go. This is all about the love of the subject. Doesn't matter the person, you know, but we like I said, it's reached comical proportions now.
Now, I know one thing that you mentioned was the whole thing with cosplay is not consent, and you did a video about that as well. And last year, when I went to my local Comic-Con, which is Alamo City Comic-Con, I saw that they had on the back of their thing kind of like the general rules, and one of them was cosplay is not consent. And my first reaction is, well, fucking duh. I mean, that's stupid that you have to put that on there. I guess you have to. I've never seen cosplayers been, you know, manhandled or whatnot, but I'm sure it happens. I've heard stories about concerts where girls get groped and whatnot, you know, in the pit, or if they're doing body surfing, they have people that will intentionally grab them. Obviously they're fucking scumbags for doing so, but the fact that this is different when you're in a convention center with a bunch of people and you actually have to put that on there, that just seems really kind of fucked to me. And the whole idea of what you said, don't be a dick, you know, really kind of resonates with me.
Yeah. Hashtag don't be. That's what all of the consent, cosplay is not consent rules boil down to. Just don't be a dick. The one there was an actual moment that I had that made me very much aware of this. There was a woman who came in. Obviously, her thing was cosplay, and that's fine. You know, I mean, everybody, I said this as well when talking about fake geek girls. Everyone has a different geekness. You know, some people are cosplay geeks. They don't need to travel around the convention. All they need to do is get to the front and get their picture taken.
Right.
You know, they work on their costumes. Well, this one woman comes to our MegaCon one year, and she's dressed as Witchblade in a very comic book faithful outfit. And there were
old Witchblade or new Witchblade?
Yeah, clarify. Not the mom jeans, not the mom jeans. But yeah, hey, I'm a guy. I was like, holy shit, yeah, I want to get a picture. You know, this, all right. And I went in there, took a picture. But then I noticed a whole bunch of guys would come up, and they're touching, and they're, you know, it's not like they went, oh, boobies, and then grabbed on and honked them or anything like that. It's just that when they figure, okay, yeah, I'll take a picture, they would touch her. And I was just watching it all in this particular. Nobody asked, and sometimes she looked very uncomfortable. And that's when all of that occurred to me, that really, if you're going to put your arm around, I say don't, unless they put their arm around you when you're taking a picture. Don't do to them, and even then. But it's also that ingrained married man thing, you know. It's like, do I think my wife would want me with my arm around a picture of Witchblade, you know? Yeah. But yeah, all these guys are just absolutely, they were being kind of dickish, you know, and that's what it turns out to be. I know that it's out. I know that it happens. I don't think it happens as much as the people behind consent, excuse me, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, cosplay is not consent, right? Which, by the way, I found out is a pornographic. It's actually a group of pornographic women who work in porn. I should just say they own cosplay is not consent. When I found that out, holy shit, that was the fucking best thing ever.
That's kind of funny.
Yeah. What's interesting is what I find out is the sort of like hyper virtue signally feminist beta male types that are on Twitter all the time are typically the ones that are actually the worst about getting grabby and all that. I mean,
Yeah.
my wife's pretty hot, so she gets creeped on pretty regularly at these conventions. It's a thing, and it's always those types every single time.
Yeah, my wife's hot, but it's menopause, so it's a different kind of thing.
I mean, yeah, there are circumstances where I've seen it. I was at a restaurant at not a convention. It was a work convention type deal, and one of my coworkers was pretty loaded, and there was a young, very attractive waitress, and she clearly worked out because she had some amazing arms. But one of the guys got very handsy, and he's like leaning across me to touch her, and I'm like, dude, knock it off. A, it's not cool for you to do that. The second, I don't want to accidentally get hit when she goes to knock your clock off, man. So yeah, I mean, obviously it happens, and when you see it, we definitely have to call this shit out because it's not fucking cool. But at the same time, it's not like I see that all the time, or I'd say that's probably the first time I've ever seen it at a restaurant or anything like that. It's I don't know, man. It's weird.
Yeah. The group makes in the conventions make it seem like it's all a Mel Brooks movie where it's like pawn jump rampant. The queen, knight jump the queen, everybody gang bang. It's and it isn't. It isn't. As a matter of fact, we get as many guys saying that girls get handsy as well. By the way, Shadow's bringing up hover hands, and holy shit, can you get more gay? And I don't mean homosexual, guys. I just mean gay. All right, that is just amazingly. Come on, seriously, ask the girl. Can I put your arm around you? The hover hands, where it's like right above. Guys,
like, trying not to put it. Yeah, I saw like there's a picture of Will Wheaton doing that with somebody, and he has like this really kind of awkward look on his face, and it's like, seriously, dude, have some self-respect. Either stand there or ask. Yeah,
it's amazing what people can do. Just if you're gonna go that far, say, do you mind if I put my arm around you for the picture? Thank you. Okay, boom. It's just one question. Otherwise, what the hell you get that? Because that looks bad. I mean, it's more wimpy to just stand beside with a smile, like, hey, all right, put thumbs up or something like that, and then to put a hover hand. I don't know. Hover hand to me seems like you've given up on manhood. I don't know.
Okay, so back to the topic at hand here. Have you seen any of the stuff when you've gone to cons, like the people of color only mixer? I'm guessing by your reaction with Emerald City, this is the first time you've actually seen it.
Me or John?
No, I'm talking to you, Englentine.
Absolutely not. Absolutely. Never have I seen any groups singled out like this. The only time you would see a group singled out when it would be like, hey, anime fans, come on in and watch. It would not be, you're not segregated by race or anything, or gender, or physical form or anything like that. It's usually, okay, here is somebody specifically who are Rick and Morty fans. We're going to have a panel for you. This whole separating by gender, sexual orientation, or race, that's brand fucking new. Excuse my language.
Dude, you're on my live stream. Like, you need to apologize.
Yeah, well, I've never apologized on mine. I don't know where the excuse my language came out. And when I'm the live stream is never somewhere. Sorry. Yeah. In all honesty, to be up front, I literally woke up 3 seconds ago. Before I got on, I was like, holy shit, I'm supposed to be on the thing with...
I made a comment to John before we started that you were probably sleeping.
Dude, I was posting all day from Islands of Adventure, the Universal Park. I came home and I was such an old man, half bent over. Oh, gosh, just taking... Yeah. And... before we left, we decided to get some sweets, some treats to carry home and such. And my ex and my daughter thought it would be nice because I like pumpkin flavored things. They got me this non-melt ice cream. I was like, oh, that sounds good. So I just pulled out. It's frosting. It is a big bowl of freaking frosting that tastes like pumpkin. I took a couple of bites. I was like, sugar coma. Yeah.
Do you drink pumpkin spice lattes?
Every November. That whole I love that meme. Pumpkin spice is coming. Yep. All right. Yeah. I'm always at the wall.
Okay. Okay, so Feisty is asking you, John, do you get a lot of grief for being openly conservative in the industry?
Oh yeah, 100%. I've got most of the sort of large name authors have blocked me. They even though they blocked me, they still talk about me. So they just say negative things. The bigger name authors are smart enough not to actually mention me by name so much, so they don't give me extra free publicity. But yeah, the sort of B and C list kind of takes their cues from them, and they're pretty openly hostile towards me. I've got at this point, I've got, I think, 4 or 5 sort of like dedicated trolls who just kind of just talk crap about me every day. There's
this is like on Twitter, Facebook. What I mean,
this is on Twitter. This is on Twitter right now. So if you're listening, hi Jan, hi Kelly, and hi Becky. Those are the 3 that are very regular. There's a couple more. There's somebody who made a non one that's called Rice Thrasher, and because my last name Delarose means rice, he did specifically make an account just to harass me, whoever that is. So yeah, I get flack every single day, and when I get in the news, it tends to get worse for a couple days, and then other than that, yeah, lots of smack talking. But they never talk bad about my work because it's better than theirs.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, I find that to be kind of like a theme. It's like with EVS, you know, he has an amazing, he's a very good artist, but people like talking shit about him.
Yeah, they never say anything bad about his art because his art's phenomenal, right?
Yeah,
that's the thing.
And he is our boss.
Well,
we were all hired. We were all hired by EVS through DNC to be Nazi sympathizers.
Wow, that's that's quite a conspiracy theory. It's a good one.
Wasn't that the rumor of some sorts? It was like, EVS's crew, and we were DNC's crew. So I can only assume that's the hierarchy. So
it's pretty funny. In truth, I barely know them. I mean, I talk to them, you know, every couple of weeks, maybe, you know, it's like share a story or something and share a link, but you know, it's there's not coordination going on here by any means.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing. It seems like sometimes it is, though. I mean, you saw you were in that one group where you had and honestly, I think those people were just talking shit. I'm not too sure about Mark Wade. I think that guy seems so unhinged that he might actually try and take a swing at DNC, but it seems like a lot of those people were just talking shit, though, because I know I've done that before with people privately, and thank God I wasn't doing this shit online, because that's all you need is one person to go and grab a screen cap, and suddenly so-and-so threatens so-and-so. And I'll be honest with you, my initial reaction was, God damn, dude, that's fucking horrific. And then after a while, after I processed it, I'm like, yeah, they're just fucking talking shit, and we're probably overreacting a little bit. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, yeah, I kind of saw it firsthand.
I think you're probably right. I think you know, it is people talking shit, and you know, will they actually go through with sort of the stuff that they're fantasizing about? I mean, probably not. These are pretty weak people, right? They'd probably, if they were going to do something, they'd probably go back channel and try to get them banned, call them a harasser, and make it so that their name never came up in the whole situation, right? But the truth is, they went in there and they did fantasize about this, you know, whether it's talking shit or not. You know, that's you know, even if we're minimizing it to that level, and if that's the best case scenario, it still is like high school clique garbage bullying.
Right.
You know,
and by no means am I justifying what was done, but
that is like best case scenario. It's that, and it's kind of gross. You know, when we're thinking about professionals, these are people who are making livelihoods. We're working hard. Diversity in Comics is, you know, he's reviewing comics and he's making his own, and it's a side thing for him. But he works hard every day too, and you know, I mean, I get it. He roasts people and he roasts people's hard work. So they've got some negative reactions sometimes, I guess. But, you know, at the end of the day, like going into little secret groups and just talking shit about people as professionals, it's ugly. I don't like it, you know?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so American Swordfish is asking you, John, are you alt-right?
I don't know. What's alt-right mean anymore? You know?
Yeah, I don't know. I think alt-right tends to be white nationalists.
I'm not a white. I'm not a white nationalist.
Yeah. Are you a nationalist?
I'm definitely a nationalist, but I'm not. I don't know about like a like ethno state sort of thing. I guess Israel's an ethno state, and I like them. You know,
that's a weird thing because I am white. I am a nationalist, but I'm not a white nationalist as it is. I mean, I love this country. As a matter of fact, there's a line from How I Met Your Mother I love. No one in this room hates every other country except for the United States as much as me. You know, okay, yeah, I think the United States is the greatest country in the world and the best that has ever existed. That being said, what they describe as a white nationalist, no, sorry, just not there. So
I think a lot of it is that what we're considering alt-right these days are people who want to have a white ethno state, the Richard Spencers of the world, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean that sort of stuff's not really my speed. So as a Hispanic guy,
yeah, I'm not a white identitarian. You know, I'm not into identity politics. I don't like any identity politician. You know,
but at the same time, I'm very sure that if Richard Spencer came across me, you know, I doubt he'd be as mean or rude to me as the SJWs would be. You know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I wouldn't be rude to him just to be a dick. I mean, it's like, I don't know. I mean, I like, I don't know. I like Mike Cernovich. He's actually been pretty supportive of me lately, which I really appreciate. And, he said it kind of best. Like, I mean, when he was talking kind of about the, you know, the trans sort of situations last year. And he's like, look, if I'm hanging out in a restaurant or something like that, and there's a dude in a dress, and you know he's trying to be a woman, and he wants me to call her she. I'm gonna say she. I mean, I'm not gonna be a dick. And it's the same thing. Like, right. I mean, if Richard Spencer's out in public or something like that, I'm not gonna like go up and punch him. I mean, like, why? It's like there's no reason to act like that towards another human being, whether it's somebody on the extreme left or if it's somebody on the extreme right. I mean, you know, that's kind of what we're trying to fight against, I think, in this whole like sort of civil rights thing that's going on now.
Now, you mentioned civil rights. Has it really escalated to that point where this is a civil rights movement? I mean, it seems like at this point in time in this country, for the most part, we are the most egalitarian we've ever been.
I think so. I mean, would Marvel or DC ever hire me? And if not, why? Is it because I'm not a writer of quality that they'd be able to do? I have a fan base that's bigger than some of their writers, so it can't be that.
Well, Gabby Rivera kind of messed up the fucking curve for the whole writer thing.
I mean, so, but it's. I mean, let's take me out of it, right? I mean, will Marvel ever hire Chuck Dixon again? Yeah. And the answer is no. And is it because of his writing? No. I mean, Marvel started this a while back, or it was DC actually, with Orson Scott Card. Orson Scott Card is one of the best writers of all time. Ender's Game is phenomenal. He was going to write Superman, and actually his what was it? Ultimate Iron Man was pretty decent too for Marvel. He was going to write Superman, and then the Outrage Brigade shut him down because he wrote an article in 1994 opposing gay marriage. I mean, that's where we're at. This is civil rights.
That doesn't make sense to me, because even Obama wasn't for gay marriage, and that was what 8 years ago.
Yeah, and that's my point. It's not even about what somebody says or does or anything like that. It's all about identity. And because Orson Scott Card, I believe, is just picked out because he's a Mormon and because these people hate Mormons. If Obama was a Mormon, it might be the same thing. But he's not. He was their icon black president, and therefore he's exempt from anything. It doesn't matter. And because it's so drilled in about identity, yeah, I do think it is a civil rights movement.
It's interesting. I had a question, but I completely got derailed. Okay. So how did you get involved in Comicsgate?
Which one of us?
Oh, sorry, John, you.
Oh, how did I get involved in Comicsgate? I wrote an article. I wrote an article for my blog back in, I think, May of last year. And I went on the Twitter accounts of every published Marvel writer at that time. And I found that every single one of them was a hardcore SJW, anti-Trump on their Twitter, angry, just complete extreme left politics and loud about it. Every single one. I counted them all. I put all of them down. I wrote them all down and I put it up on my blog. And then I sent it. I actually was not really involved in this whole comics culture war or anything before that. I sent it to Bleeding Cool because, I remembered 10 years ago, I would check Bleeding Cool for comics news. So this is what I'll do. Right. And Rich Johnston wrote this whole thing, acting like I was trying to apply for a job at Marvel, and poo-pooing my research and just totally lambasted me sarcastically. And I was like, this is a real problem. Marvel has only one side of the spectrum, and it's obvious, and it's obvious in their books, and it's obvious in their who they're hiring, and it's bad. Well, that escalated once Bleeding Cool picked it up, and that's how the Federalist found me. So the editor, Ben Dominic at the Federalist, was like, hey, would you write this up and do like a real article for us instead of just like some shitty blog post? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And he's like, we'll pay you. I'm like, I'll get on it right now.
Wow. That's kind of an amazing story, because usually Rich Johnson, he's the pillar of integrity as far as comic book journalism is concerned. It's really shocking to hear.
Yeah.
So in some ways, Rich Johnston is responsible for my career.
America Chavez, I said it before. It built my fucking channel. So, go figure.
Hi, Rich, if you're listening to this.
Yeah, he's probably not. He probably has no fucking clue who I am. No. Okay, I gotta address something from Trillium real quick. Alt comics, I have to go with no, because anything alt these days is kind of associated with a negative. Alt right, alt left usually is kind of associated with some sort of extreme. So unless you're wanting some kind of extreme comics,
I don't know. So I'm associated with the Alt Hero Project now. And I am working on that with Fox Day and Chuck Dixon. And it obviously got a lot of flack early on from kind of the people who were kind of knee jerking about the alt word, like you said. Mm-hmm. It has definitely, in the zeitgeist, it definitely has taken like an extremist, edgy connotation to it, which was done intentionally for the marketing. I understand. But Alt Hero is going to be pretty good. I've read the scripts. I've seen some of the. I've actually seen the unpublished issues, and I think we're going to have good comics, and I think people are going to enjoy them. So I don't know. Just putting that on there. Branding and marketing is just branding and marketing.
It's an uphill battle, though, because of that.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are going to have a tougher time just because of the connotation that comes along with the alt.
Maybe. I mean, we get a tougher time in that we get some flack from some randos on Twitter. But, people have already paid significant amount of money for us to write this ahead of time, which is nice. I mean, I like most of my books, like I put them out there, like my book that's going to come out in 2 weeks. It's coming out and I don't know if anybody's going to buy it, and I don't know if I'm going to get paid at all. Right. It's scary. Actually having a project where it's funded in advance and having people who are built-in readers in advance is actually really comforting. Even if I'm getting some flack from the other side.
God bless the $250,000 Kickstarter.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So.
That's a pretty insane amount of money, and I'm pretty sure a lot of that didn't come from just comic fans. I'm pretty sure there's people out there that are supporters of Fox Day that wanted to fund his project.
Well, yeah, but we've also mentioned the fact that, and I know I've got comments on my videos now proving it, that we have people watching our videos who aren't comics fans. They just They're against the SJW movement.
I mean, a lot of people stopped reading comics because they've just been shit for 10 years, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people just won't even bother checking it out. I mean, Europe and Japan have pretty healthy comic markets where people just read it who are normal people. We've gone down to where, you know, I mean, I hate to say it, and sorry if I'm offending anybody here, but normal people don't read comics in America, you know? Mm-hmm. That's been turned off. We do have a question in the chat. Chuck Dixon is writing... Chuck Dixon is writing a book. It's going to be called Avalon for Alt Hero. It's in the Alt Hero universe. And it's basically a city that's going to be his own proprietary city where his own heroes are running about defending it as part of the hero initiative in Alt Hero. So
okay, so he's not actually writing for the Alt Hero proper then.
It's the same. It is Alt Hero, but it's just not branded that.
Well, no, yeah, I'm sorry. The actual Alt Hero book is what I'm referring to.
Yeah, that's going to be Vox is doing the primary Alt Hero book. This is going to be like the secondary one, and then I'm actually doing a novelization, which is like a prequel to the whole deal.
So, what can you tell us about Alt Hero?
It's interesting. I don't know what I'm supposed to say or what I'm not. So I'll just wing it, and hopefully I won't get into trouble.
Okay.
So basically, it's set up where the European Union and United Nations has created like this global hero initiative, and they're basically recruiting heroes in, and the heroes are sort of like super cops. And you know, I mean, it's a setting that's been done like in, you know, Powers or you know, a couple other things before, but differently this time. And it's part of their sort of like globalization effort. And so they're bringing in all the superpowered heroes in order to control them so that, you know, they maintain their political control. And there's basically some rebel heroes out there who they're heroes, but they're bucking against this whole thing. So they're branded as criminals. So you kind of get that J. Jonah Jameson Spider-Man's a menace sort of vibe from it. It's all over the map. I mean, I would say, so Vox is writing two different storylines right now. One of them kind of takes place in Europe. One of them takes place in America. And so it's less ingrained in American politics than you would think. Vox lives in Italy. So he's not sitting here steeped in American politics every day. So he'll actually bring a different perspective to things. Chuck's story is just gritty action, of course, because it's Chuck Dixon, and it's pretty awesome. So mine is going to be a story about like when the initiative's kind of just getting going, and they're trying to recruit Americans specifically to try to kind of as a PR sort of thing, saying, hey, look, Americans, don't rebel against this. You don't need to be nationalists. And that's kind of, I guess that's the global alt hero perspective right there.
Okay, that's interesting. So we have a question from Computer Robots. Why are normal people turned off by comic books?
Oof. I mean, I just going to this comic book store. I have children, and so I want them to experience comics like I had growing up. I remember I got Amazing Spider-Man 375 as it was my first book, and it had that gold shiny cover, and then it was just Spider-Man and Venom beating the crap out of each other for 20 pages. And, you know, it was awesome. And I was just like, this is just cool. Well, I go into a store and it's like, it's not Avengers, it's Occupy Avengers. And I'm like, I have to steep my kid in this like annoying political shit. Like, I'm not going to buy this for my kid. And I just walk right back out. And I think if you see that enough, you know, it just takes one time. It really does, because once you've got it in your mind to turn it off and it's gone and it's not for your kids, you've lost that entire generation. And I think we've seen a lot of that. And I think not only with that, it's kind of the last straw because they burn out collectors with the whole variant covers and going too far. They really pushed, you know, with Marvel Max and all this like Game of Thronesy gritty comics. They push too far with that kind of content where it's like it's just too dark and too sexualized and too over the top violence all the time, to where it's like, you know, you don't get that starter as a kid. And if you don't get that starter as a kid, you know, you kind of lose the heart and soul of society there.
Right, and that's one thing after Frugal did a video about this, is something I really started noticing was like, when I walk into a comic shop, I don't see kids. Occasionally I'll see kids, but the majority of the people in there are adults, people ranging from their 20s probably to the 30s, and then you have a mix of like 40s to 50s. But primarily people that grew up reading comics that are now adults. You don't see as many kids, which I found to be kind of mind-blowing, actually. And I guess that makes sense with the fact that comic books matured as the readers matured. When they got rid of the Comics Book Code Authority, it was basically free game. And I think part of the issues there is that you don't have books that age people in. You don't have books gears towards kids, teens, and then young adults, and then, you know, people in the 20s, etc. Sorry, Eglinton, you have a comment there?
Yeah, may I take a shot at this one?
Go for it.
Frederick Wortham is possibly the biggest single thing that you could point to say what caused people to now look at normal people, normal Americans anyway, to look at comic books and say they're all for kids. Before that, adults read them just as well. You would see them in the hands of the GIs during the wars. They were acceptable. You had EC Comics horror, you had the war stories, and of course superheroes. Frederick Wortham came around and said, "Hey, they're spoiling kids. They're making them delinquents, and look at Batman and Robin's gay." You know, and
corruption of the innocent.
Right, and then we self-policed, and it was actually a smart move to self-police, because, you know, better to do it yourself than have the government make a law. If the government made a law, it would have been impossible for them to drop it and say, well, from now on, we're doing whatever story we want, which eventually is what happened. But in that time, in the years after that, comic books were very much for kids. They were written. I mean, you've seen it. You've seen the Batman. Hey, today I'm wearing my rainbow bright zebra gum outfit.
Yeah,
you know, it really did just go really childish. They're fun as hell. Give me a Carmine Infantino Batman any freaking day of the week. They are very fun, but it did get childish. So they were seen as something for kids, to the point where we're talking, and I mentioned earlier, if you were not a kid and you were reading it, you may have experienced some bullying. You were looked down upon. I love, by the way, I'm going to go off on a tangent now. I love hearing these women in the comic book industry saying, we were kept out. I'm saying, bitch, you kept us fucking out of your clique. We come on in and read the freaking comics. Just don't put us down. You know, none of us cared if women were in it, but they would make fun, you know, if you found out. We were put down for it. And even now we even say, well, it's kind of accepted because of the Iron Man movie and the Marvel Universe movie. But no, the characters are. But the myth of the basement dwelling geek is still alive and kicking. You'll hear people talk about the nerds that live in their mom's basement even today, while people are going out and spending $1 billion to see Black Panther. So
that was one thing I remember. It was around the early 2000s, and it was when broadband just started getting popular. And it wasn't because it was becoming popular; it's the fact that it was becoming accessible. And there was these commercials for, I think it was like 1-800-BE-A-GEEK or something like that. I don't remember the name of the company that did it, but the commercials really stuck in my head. And I thought that was funny because, you know, growing up in the, you know, the 80s and 90s, being a geek was not looked upon as being a good thing.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, you know, back to the whole bullying thing. And it was like this weird thing, you know, being in the 90s on the internet where you had dial-up and whatnot, and, you know, the normies looked on it as being weird and whatnot. I remember my parents would try and get a hold of me. I'd be online surfing, just, you know, checking stuff out. And now it was like the internet started getting normalized, you know, specifically seeing those commercials. And I kind of see the same thing going on right now to an extent with comics, but at the same time, not because of how bad things have gotten writing wise and art wise. I mean, we all see what has transpired last year with Marvel, and we all stood and fought against it.
It does kind of seem like being a geek has become a fad almost. And
Yes.
I'm not saying that's everybody. For people like us have grown into creative positions where you do have a J.J. Abrams who grew up on comic books, or Kevin Smith or somebody who is now creating that. But it seems like it's also become a fad where you have people who have never heard of the Black Panther before, you know, Wakanda Forever, and what do you mean he was written by a white guy? You know.
Yeah. And it's mind-boggling. But steering us back towards the topic, what do you kind of see for the future of the industry as well as these conventions? Do you think that this is going to become more and more commonplace, where it's going to be acceptable to exclude white males and then narrowing down to white females? Because that's the next step. You know, once you normalize kicking out straight white men, it's going to be the straight white women, and then it will probably be gay white men and women. That's the extremes I see this going to.
Yeah, we're following the trends of the book publishing industry. This is already happening in young adult books and in science fiction books. I posted a thing on Twitter earlier today, or yesterday maybe. There's this group, it's a press that's coming out, and their submissions are only open to people of color. White people, you can submit later, but right now we're only doing people of color. And they're not the only one. I mean, there's another magazine that's out, Uncanny Magazine. They've only want people of color. There was I forget what it's called. There's another magazine out. I mean, I've seen 4 this year of big publishers who are just only taking submissions from certain ethnicities. It's already
how is that legal? How is that legal?
You have to get somebody who wants to take this up as a case. I mean, you'll have to get a white author to go, I'm going to sue, and I'm going to, you know, say discrimination, and this is what's going on. And then you have to get a judge who will go for it. And I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into proving that this is a civil rights case. And there's not a swell of, I guess, white people willing to stand up for their rights at this point. So it's going to get worse. And in YA, if for people who aren't aware of the global book market outside of comics, you know, women writers are, you know, 95% of the writing industry. They're editors and all that. It's for just books, that's where it's at. And science fiction was kind of like the only spot men were for a couple decades. And now it's actually flipped to a point where there are more women than men in the writing industry and science fiction as well. YA is all women. There's nothing else there. And recently there's been a trend where if you're a white woman writing a Muslim, you're not allowed to, because you're culturally appropriating. And these internet lynch mobs will kind of go around and trash authors. They'll leave thousands of reviews, angry reviews, fake reviews, you know, calling them racist, this or that, trying to hate these white women out of the industry. It's happening in books right now. What we're going to see with comics is we're going to go more towards that trend that's already happening in books. If you just study the history of what's been going on in regular books for the last 20 years, I think that's what we'll see with the big players in comics. Now, in both cases, there are alternatives, and it's indie publishing, digital publishing is causing sort of an upheaval in another sense, where you actually have, as a person, an option not to just go with the publishers that are out there. And we're increasingly gaining more market share. Now, it's going to kill, these publishers are going to kill themselves over their politics. But if you, the really only alternative, you're not going to be able to save these sinking ships. It's over. I'm sorry. Marvel's over. DC's over too. It's just going to keep sinking. They don't care about the comics. They only care about movies at the executive level. And at the level below that, the editorial only cares about politics. You have to make a commitment to indie comics. # move the needle is where it's at, guys, for real.
It really does sound like you are a cuck faggot. I'm joking. Trust me, because I've said similar things, and that's why I've gotten so many comments like that.
I know, right?
You're saying we're gonna lose. You're gonna say we can't save it. You are a cuck faggot. Oh wait, somebody came up, by the way. Who shared that? Who found that, by the way? Comix Division. Somebody made a whole page called Faglantine. And I can't help but think that that was because the other day I was saying, yeah, we're going to lose this. You know, we're not going to turn.
I had no idea that existed. That's bizarre.
That was fucking funny, man. Somebody posted like, who is this? And said Faglantine. I'm like, that's
wow.
If somebody hates me so freaking much, they went out of their way to create an entire page like that. I mean, what a fucking waste of time.
I just don't get what they try to accomplish with things like that. It's like, do they really think you're such a wimp that you're going to stop doing what you're doing because there's a webpage that's hate? It's like, come on.
The whole thing. I said, look, this is a losing battle. We're fighting a losing battle. We really are.
We are.
I agree with you.
I said that means we have to double down and we have to fight harder. You know, we have to make sure if we're going to go down, if we're fighting a losing battle, then we need to make a lot of friggin' noise, because what it's ultimately going to be is there's going to be this huge industry. And by that, I mean, you know, prospectively, this huge industry of identity politics comics, and over in the corner there is going to be us, and we have to fight harder because we have to be the voice. We have to be somebody saying there is an option to what they're doing. And I think a whole bunch of people just heard, well, you're gonna lose, so okay, we should give up. No, sorry. But yeah, look, I'm sorry. Whoever made Faglantine, you're not doing. I've got a lot more self-esteem than, you know.
they set things up.
That's actually a website.
Yeah, there's a page. I don't know where it came from. I think Corrupt found it or something. He's generally around all the shit posters and such. But that friggin' made me laugh when I saw that.
Yeah, I'm looking at the comments here. I'm a big Valiant fan too in a lot of ways, but Valiant is just as bad as Marvel and DC for the most part, unfortunately. I'm hoping with this management change that they're gonna move away from that. But I would say about half their comics are definitely push these weird virtue signally things in them. There's the safe ones right now. XO Manowar is safe. It's very good. Bloodshot Salvation by Jeff Lemire is like, you know, he's definitely on Team SJW, but he is keeping it out of the comic, which is all I care about. So that's a great book.
I don't care. War Mother was damn cool.
War Mother was excellent. But it like Quantum and Woody like is just all like, you're racist, white guy, jokes, and it's just like, I'm so sick of that. And in Ninja K, they do lots of lots of little signals in it. Like the first issue had, I can seduce anyone. I can seduce people of any age and any gender. And it's like, did you really have to put that in there? Like, if you just took that out and just put, I can seduce people, you would have got the same point across, but you just put of any gender just to create this sort of edgy, there are 50,000 genders line of thinking in there.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, come on, you know? And they do that in Valiant books periodically. So you have to be careful with them. And then there's Faith.
Yeah. Okay, so computer robots is asking, when do you guys think the MCU will eventually decline with moviegoers?
I think that would be right after they produce Pregnant Nova Corps as a film. After that, it will. Yeah, what the fuck was that? In all honesty, I think we're going to start seeing it after the Avengers. The Avengers Infinity War, I have a feeling, will be like a big old orgasm for the MCU. They're like, and we're done. And they really, and I don't know if Captain Marvel's going to do it, but they really have to come out of the gate swinging with Captain Marvel, because this is the start of a whole new story. We've been working up to Avengers Infinity War movies for 10 years.
So
So after that,
I've heard that the next phase of the MCU is going to have a lot more focus on women.
that's the rumor.
Mm-hmm.
So bring on that Ms. Marvel movie that
I think we've got so many Marvel movies now. I don't just go see a Marvel movie in the theater anymore. Like I'm like, oh man, another one. Like they just came out with one last month, you know.
Oh, I do.
Yeah, but I think you're gonna start to see a decline now. There will be a periodic one, like, you know, Black Panther just had so much buzz and excitement to it that, you know, it picked up again. But I think we're starting to see the decline. I think you're right. Infinity War will definitely be a big one, but we're also going to be moving into tertiary characters. And, you know, how many Spider-Man reboots are we at now? 3, 4? You know,
the third, yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, I mean, those sort of things are going to start to take their toll on this whole deal too.
I've said this in live streams. Marvel is a studio. Yeah, they're under the Disney banner, but they're a studio. They're not a franchise. Captain America is a franchise. Thor is a franchise. So it always kind of bugs me when people say, like, you know, the franchise of Marvel. No, that's not it. I think so long as they can keep the movies fresh, do like we all love Winter Soldier because that's a spy thriller with a superhero.
Yeah,
that's the way they need to go.
Great movie, yes.
But and I will always support him because I've watched enough fucking Meg Ryan movies in the 90s to make me a freaking permanent woman there in that decade. I swear to God, it's just like you watch so many crime dramas, so many romantic comedies, and God dang it, Blumhouse, love you, but Jesus Lord in heaven, spend more than $10 on a horror film. We've seen all the other genres. Now we're getting superheroes. Thank you very much. I'm going to go see all of them in the theaters because finally they're making movies for me. So yeah, I have to endure a bad one. Am I going to cry every time DCU makes a movie and I'm so excited and then I walk out going, why? Yeah, but I will sit there because this one may be bad, but the next one may be good.
I think that, and I said this before a couple of times, that I just want to see movies made about superheroes or comic books in general. Just pick a story and make it. It doesn't have to have the same actors all the time. I understand why Hollywood tries to build these franchises. Obviously at some point they burn out. I think comics as a genre is here to stay. But the MCU, however, I think is going to fizzle and pop with Infinity War.
Yeah, well, like I said, it's going to be an orgasm. I'll tell you what, I would love to see movies about comics. You know, you did Professor Marston and the Wonder Women. I would love to see Jack Kirby's story or, you know, Stan Lee's story. They went to war for Cripe's sake and then got out of it and created the Marvel universe. There's a story there. Let's see those things.
Yeah, that'd be very cool.
We have like 3 or 4 different Walt Disney movies, you know, so about his life.
About Walt Disney. Yeah.
There. If you ever read the book, what was it? Sucker Punch or the behind the scenes of the Marvel universe. There's so many good ones. There's one that has a whole chapter. I forget the title of it, but it had a whole chapter just about the Jim Shooter years. It's so cool to read this kind of behind the scenes stuff. There is a history behind the history of comics, you know, so I would love to see that kind of thing. But then again, I am that kind of a geek.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I don't think we're there yet. That just... Yeah, I would say that Stan Lee is maybe a household name. I think most people probably heard of Stan Lee, specifically people that have been in the comics, but not everybody, not all the normies know who Jack Kirby is.
Not everybody knew who Forrest Gump was. You know, I mean, nobody knew who John Wick was. You know, it's the name isn't so much as the story. So, you know, you can sell it.
I do think comic book movies will survive as long as they're good. If we're getting stuff like Elektra and Catwoman, probably not.
God, I love
I forgot about those, and I wish I kept forgetting about those.
I have a nasty habit of bringing up really bad comic book movies, like the original '70s Doctor Strange movie that people just keep trying to forget. But I'm the asshole who keeps bringing it back up.
Doctor Strange with a porn fro. Yeah, that's awesome. He had a permanent that actually went into a mustache. It is amazing. That's a great ability to grow pubic hair wherever you want it to.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to see a movie about the formation of the Comic Book Code Authority and the whole thing with Wertham and the seduction of this. And I think that would make a very interesting either documentary or an actual movie about it.
The rise and fall of EC Comics would be fun. There's actually a lot of those kind of stories. Hell, Warren Magazine was just the biggest thing in the world for a while. Not literally, but it was huge. And then I can't hold my money for other reasons, and just petered out. How about the legal battles between Superman and Shazam? There's a lot of stories and such that could be focused on that could be very interesting. Because I mean, right there, you've got a court battle. There's been a lot of movies that take place in the court. So there are stories behind the stories we read. Or how about now? Comicsgate could actually be a decent film if done right. The only problem is we would be the bad guys, ladies and gentlemen.
Most likely, yes, we would be painted all as internet trolls like in South Park. Pocked-faced nerds hiding behind their computers.
Yep, the basement-dwelling geek.
Yeah, where is the booze, strippers, and cigars? Eglinton said it would be here. Where is it? Well, I have booze, not necessarily strippers and cigars. But I do have another question for you guys. So we know the future is bleak when it comes to comics. What about conventions? Because conventions are so fueled by comic books. Even if it's, you have people who are just cosplayers mixed in with normies and diehard fans. When do you see that kind of imploding because of what's going on?
Excuse me. I don't think it's going to implode because of the SJW thing. I think it's going to implode because it's getting less and less about the comic books and more about the movie and TV people that they're getting to go in. Now, of course, this may just be anecdotal because I'm noticing it happen with Orlando MegaCon, but the prices have been going up as the names of the people have been getting bigger that they've been bringing in. And I've noticed that the comic book retailers have been getting fewer and fewer.
Yeah, that's being on the West Coast. I watched this happen with San Diego Comic-Con, 2 decades ago. It used to be about comics there too, believe it or not. And I stopped going in 2014 just because it stopped being even interesting business wise for me as a person trying to write books. But it got big. You couldn't walk. But the thing is, when they're that big, they're not really imploding. They may be changing their focus, but there's enough people trying to go check it out every year and trying to see it every year and want to see these Hollywood actors and all that it's a thing. It's just not a Comic-Con at that point, even though they call themselves that. And I think that's what we're seeing at these bigger conventions. I'm familiar with Orlando MegaCon, and yeah, it's going that direction too. And we're starting to see sort of a increase in these larger regional, New York City, Orlando, Emerald City Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con. They're kind of becoming regional, big events that are just ginormous, like Dragon Con is. And they're going to move more towards those models and stop being the Comic-Cons of yore. But there's a lot of small ones that are all over, and they're more retailer focused, and I have a lot of fun at those personally. And you start to kind of get to know the community at those, and because they're more retailer and commerce focused, they tend to be they tend to not really get into political agendas so much as well. So there's a lot of options. There's tons of conventions. The literary conventions about books where it's watching authors talk and give panels and all that are dying out because they're just not fun anymore. Everybody's kind of, you get one of two things. You get how to write books, part 1, you make characters and have them do things. And you can only listen to that so many times. Or you get like, how feminism is advancing in this, and it just becomes awful. Like, so those are going to die out 100%, and they are dying out. But there's a lot of different options.
There's a documentary called Comic-Con Episode 4 Fans Hope that it follows a whole bunch of different kinds of convention goers, the cosplay, the kids, and one of them they follow is Mile High Comics, the owner of Mile High Comics, and it really does follow him around San Diego Comic-Con and how much even somebody like him is being hurt by the fact that comic book cons are being less and less about the comics.
Yeah, it's terrible.
I highly recommend that documentary. It's Comic-Con Episode 4 Fans Hope. Very interesting.
But part of that going down is not just the conventions themselves making space. It's the fact that our culture is caring a lot less about collecting as we're moving to more internet-based stuff. So it's like, and the people who do care about collecting, well, we're all online now and we all go on eBay and can get what we want anyway. We don't really have to hunt for, I wanted to reread Gen 13 the whole run. I just went on eBay and I found 60 books for $40. I mean, I just did it. So I don't really need to hunt individual issues to go and read those backstories as hard as I used to at the same time. Now,
if you catch eBay on the right day, you can get a lot of good deals. If you're a 4 o'clock in the morning shopper, it's a buyer's market. It really is. I got a lot of good deals. I bought a She-Hulk #1. I haven't had it slabbed or anything yet, but it looks to me like it's in the 8 or 9 range. And man, it was beautiful, and it cost me $5.
Beautiful.
Wow. Yeah, it was. It was like they were rumoring that there was going to be a movie. I'm like, I'm going to hold on to this. Bought the run of Iron Man right up to I think it was like 13, and it had the first appearances of Riri Williams, and this is when she was going to be the next biggest thing. And I was like, yeah, this ain't. I read them, and I was like, this ain't gonna last. I was like, yeah, this is a speculation boom on her. But then I thought, hold off, because once she appears in a movie, the speculators will jump out, and you could sell it to them. The dumbass speculators keep this market going sometime.
Yeah, it sure seems that way.
Well, if you notice, before every movie, the certain books will just skyrocket. Like, Suicide Squad, it's going to be the biggest thing. The first appearance of Harley Quinn goes from being a $400 book to $1,000. The first appearance of Killer Croc. I've got 2 copies of the first appearance of Katana, Asian chick, and that even went up to like $30 or $40. Like, who the freaking hell cares about Katana, of all things? And then afterwards, it's like, oh, Suicide Squad sucked. Okay, nobody's buying them for those prices, but it just shines a light on them for a little bit. Speculators, like I said, man, they'll drive it up, but they don't keep it there.
No, they don't, and that's part of what caused a lot of issues in the 90s too. But that's what it is, I suppose. Let's see here, guys. I figure we can start wrapping it up. We've been going for pretty close to an hour and a half here. And honestly, I have not been feeling very well. So I guess we can call it in 6 minutes. Is there anything you guys want to wrap on? Oh, there actually is one last question I have. So one thing I thought was pretty funny with the stream I did with Feisty Fan and Nerdrotic, we were hit up, or excuse me, I was hit up by somebody. I don't know how they saw my stream information, but they're talking about the whole thing with Comicsgate is not about good comics or wanting good comics. It's about making comics conservative again. I think that is probably a very small minority. I mean, John, what's kind of your motivations behind Comicsgate? Are you wanting to see good books, or do you have a conservative agenda?
Oh yeah, 100%. I have a conservative agenda. But look, the problem is that conservatives aren't even allowed to have an idea in something at all, and the rest of the industry has free reign for the SJW ideas. So if we're in a place where only one side can present their ideas, it's a bad place. And you don't solve that by not talking about it. The less, if you're on the right or whatever, and you're going to say, okay, I'm just going to be quiet and not say anything, and I'm just going to be polite, and we're just going to not talk about politics, and people will see that it's healthier and better this way. All that the other side sees is that they're unopposed, and that's what we have right now. So I think there is a need for some conservative ideas in comics. I mean, in my comics I've been writing that I'm going to work on getting done, and in the Ember War, you know, there's really none of that. It's just going to be wall-to-wall military science fiction action. But you know, I want to be able to write what I want to write when I feel like it, right?
That's the way it should be.
And yeah, it's so I definitely think there needs to be a space for that. I think it'd be healthy, and I'm going to support people who are going to be making conservative themed comics, just so everybody can have a voice here. I mean, personally, I'm not going to get too much into that. My books, I don't really get into that too much. I have one that's going to be very inflammatory, but other than that, I mean, it's pretty safe. If you don't want that, I could direct you to my books that don't have that. So I want everybody to read. If somebody's on the left, I want them to be able to talk to me and read, and I want to thank them for reading as much as somebody on the right, personally.
Very cool. Oh, there was one other question I did forget to ask. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Englentine.
Yeah, I think it's kind of funny that anybody outside of Comicsgate feels that they can define what Comicsgate is when basically everybody in Comicsgate can't define what it is. I was asked, or we were asked, it was on a DM today. Somebody asked us, "Are we even a community anymore?" And my answer was, actually, we're a few communities that are linked. There are people in Comicsgate for a lot of different reasons, and sometimes it's baffling to the others. You know, it's like, wait a second. You know we don't like the identity politics. That's where we all stand. But you have some who are wanting to get this SJW writers fired. You just want some who want the identity politics out of comics, and then you have some that seem that they just want to put it out there because it's profitable. You know, it is profitable to do videos about it. It just seems like we ourselves don't have one true definition of what Comicsgate is. So to hear them try to define it, that's comical to me.
And well, yeah, but that's
normal. Going back to sorry, John, I cut you off.
Go for
but going back to the whole thing with they control the narrative. They can define it any way they want.
Yes, and that's the problem. But the reality is, like, I mean, nobody's going to agree 100% on things, and especially artists, right? I mean, you know, we're people who are creating our own visions and in a solitary sort of sense, right? So, you know, I don't expect to agree with you 100% on anything, or with Comix Division 100% on anything. And I could still be friends with you guys and still feel like I'm part of your community, even if, you know, my focus is a little different. And that's fine. And I think that's healthy. And I think more ideas and more comics are better.
Yep. Very cool. Now, you mentioned that you are writing an article for Dangerous. Or did you already write it, or is it already published? Or
yeah, that came out last week.
Details.
Okay. Monday, Tuesday, right after Emerald City Comic Con. And I just I kind of did an overlay. It was called, what was it called? I don't even remember what the article was called. Just look up John Delarose Dangerous. And I just kind of I laid out Emerald City Comic Con. Just it's like a primer. If you want to show somebody what's going on at conventions, I talked about my Worldcon thing for a second. I talked about East Coast Comic Con and their you know, sort of, you know, Kevin Sorbo's not allowed here thing from a couple of weeks ago.
Really? Kevin Sorbo is not allowed at certain places.
You missed that one?
No, I did.
Dude, I did a video about it. Thank you very much, man. What the fuck? Seriously?
Maybe I just blanked on it.
It's okay. There's so many of these things now that it is a systemic problem, and you can't keep track of everything. So I put just a brief primer of 4 or 5 conventions in that article, just as sort of a reference guide for people. So that's what that was about.
Okay, very cool. Okay, pimping wares time. John, we will start with you.
All right, I definitely please check out my books. I'm primarily a novel writer, and that's where I make most of my money. I've got a Patreon, but I don't expect people who don't know me really to support that at this juncture, but you should. But for Steam and Country is my main book that's most popular right now. It's a steampunk fantasy, just pure airship action. And The Stars Entwined is my book that comes out March 20th. It's military science fiction, and I just got my first review of it today, so I'm pretty excited about that.
Awesome. And over to Englentine.
Englentine from I Love Comics. I guess, don't really have anything tomorrow. Usually it's Frugal Friday, and I share his and your videos, actually, Division, and if any True Believer videos are out there to pimp somebody else's channel. However, this is what I talk about all the time, ladies and gentlemen. Go on Sunday, 8 or 9 o'clock. Be there for Comic Book Thunderdome. This week is going to be Dalton versus King Billy, I think he's calling himself these days. So it should be a good fight. We're hoping so anyway. Last week was awesome with Maranya and Spike Valentine. That is the one. If there's one show I want to pimp out every freaking week all the time is Comic Book Thunderdome. It's just tons of fun. So make sure you're there at 9 o'clock. Otherwise, yeah, I Love Comics on YouTube. All sorts of videos.
I was actually supposed to make a video last night, which hopefully will be going on tomorrow night. I want to give a quick shout out really quick to Frankenstein Alive. I'm pretty sure nobody's heard of this book.
I have.
Oh, good. It came out in 2012. It was illustrated by Bernie Wrightson, who passed away last year, and he is a fantastic artist. And the fact that they actually got the 4th issue out this year, like 5 freaking years later, is pretty awesome. And I want to do a video about that, but unfortunately my allergies are really acting up yesterday, which prevented me. So look forward to that. Hopefully I'll have a video out soon, because I've been kind of sucking in that department. Any parting words, anyone, before we call it good?
Watch Comic Book Thunderdome every Sunday night, 8 or 9 o'clock, usually 8 these days.
Be excellent to each other and party on, dudes.
All righty, and until next time, folks, enjoy your reads.